When I first started dressing at about 12, I'd sneak into my mother's wardrobe whenever she was away, since my father lived in another state. Over time, I began experimenting with her makeup, using magazine pictures for ideas on application. Soon, I got quite good at it. However, my taste in clothing, especially panties and bras, differed from my mother's. As I grew older, I became more daring, purchasing my own clothes like bikini panties, matching bras, short skirts, and low-cut tops. With longer hair, I'd style it in curls or tie it back in a ponytail. The only thing missing was a more feminine figure to fill out my bras. I loved winter because I could wear a bra under heavy clothes at school without it showing. Every day, I hurried home to spend a few precious hours dressed as Danielle. It was the highlight of my day, until Lisa unexpectedly visited. Lisa, a close friend with whom I'd gone on a few dates, dropped by one afternoon while I was in my usual routine. I rushed home after class, changed into my Danielle persona, and was studying on the couch when the doorbell rang. Opening the door absent-mindedly, I was shocked to see Lisa's expression, remembering too late how I looked. I quickly hid behind the door and let her in, realizing there was no point in hiding anymore. We retreated to my room, where Lisa, trying to lighten the mood, remarked, "Well, this is a different look." I decided to be honest and shared my whole story with her, pleading for secrecy. Lisa agreed but had plenty of questions. Eventually, I confessed that I preferred being a girl to being a guy. It was a tough admission but a relief to finally confide in someone. Lisa paused thoughtfully, then asked, "What about your chest? You'll need some forms to complete the look." I admitted I didn't have any and wasn't sure what to do next. Lisa insisted we meet after school with money in hand, saying, "It costs, right?" The next day, we visited a local salon owned by her mom's friend. After explaining my situation, the owner kindly agreed to help. Nervous with 3 people now in the know, the owner reassured me it would be okay. I purchased a set of C-cup forms and returned home to see how they looked. Lisa even styled my hair to help me achieve a feminine look that I could easily conceal when necessary. Once I was all dressed up, I was truly amazed. Being smaller and slighter than most guys, my body leaned towards the feminine side. After dressing and applying makeup, I looked quite girlish. But when I added my new prized possession, I was stunned. Standing before the mirror, I saw a very attractive young lady staring back at me. There was no way anyone could mistake me for anything but a girl in the way I was dressed. Lisa grew impatient waiting and came into my room. "Danielle," she exclaimed, "you look absolutely amazing. I'm starting to worry you might get more attention than me." I just smiled and continued admiring myself. She was right, Lisa was certainly not unattractive. Standing beside my friend, even I had trouble believing it was a guy and a girl in the mirror. Every day, I rushed home to change. Lisa often joined me to study, though we ended up giggling and chatting more than studying. It was wonderful having a friend with whom I could truly be myself. My spirits couldn't have been higher. Lisa even convinced me to venture out dressed as Danielle. We would head to the mall and shop, where girls from school mistook me for a friend from out of town and guys followed us around. It all seemed too good to be true, but unfortunately, it abruptly came to an end for me. My mother started working day shifts, leaving me with hardly any time for my private life. It wasn't long before the change began to negatively affect me. My mood and grades plummeted. I tried to focus on studying, but my thoughts kept drifting back to my desire to be Danielle. I missed the freedom I had as Danielle, and it began to show. Unaware of the reason for my changed behavior, my mother took me to see a therapist, Dr. Andrew Hill. I had never disclosed Danielle to my mother, and only one other person knew the extent of it. There was no way I was going to confide in some male shrink. Reluctantly, I was dragged to his office every week for about 4 months. To my relief, my mother eventually told me I didn't have to see him anymore. Just as I was starting my junior year, I learned I would now be seeing a female therapist named Dr. Lisa Bowden. The routine was similar. Week after week, I evaded the truth until one day I slipped up. It wasn't much, but Lisa caught it. I tried to joke my way out of it, but it was too late. By the time I left her office, I had confessed everything. Lisa suggested I attend our sessions dressed as Danielle, and I eagerly agreed. I underwent numerous tests and recounted how I started dressing. Then she had me repeat the tests. Throughout my junior year, I met with her each week as Danielle. My attitude improved, and so did my grades. Then came the day I dreaded. Lisa asked my mother to attend a session. To spare me, Lisa suggested I come dressed in regular clothes. As my mother and Lisa discussed test results, I found myself tuning out most of their conversation. Then Lisa got to the point. "Lauren," she said, "based on what I've discovered, Dan exhibits very strong feminine tendencies. These tests indicate he identifies more with being a girl." My mother was taken aback. "What?" she blurted out. "Are you saying my son is gay or something? How did this happen? What am I supposed to do to fix it?" She rambled on for a good 5 minutes, just going on and on. Finally, Lisa intervened. "No," she interjected firmly, "the tests indicate that Dan's thought processes align more with those of a girl. It's not something influenced by home environment. There's nothing you did or could have done to cause this." Lisa proceeded to explain in detail how the 6 different tests were conducted and repeated at various locations, noting slight variations in results but confirming her overall assessment. Then she insisted that I come clean to my mother. It took a few moments for my mother to absorb the information before she responded. "Okay," she began, "these tests are completely independent. Dan likes to dress and act as Danielle. It's not something I can control. So, what do we do now?" Lisa pondered for a moment before responding. "There are a couple of options. First, you could forbid these actions, but that might lead to regression, depression, and distance. Second, if you're open to it, you could allow Dan to live full-time as Danielle. Since school's out for the week, it wouldn't be too disruptive. This way, Danielle can be present, Dan can explore these feelings more deeply, and we can work together to understand this better." After thinking it over, my mother agreed it was a good idea. Lisa laid out the ground rules for me to follow and set a 2-month timeline starting from the first day of vacation. I was to keep a journal and submit it by the 1st of August. Summer turned out to be wonderful. I was happier than ever, and it took my mother a few days to fully embrace the idea. Once she did, we made the most of it together. Before long, I believe she was enjoying it as much as I was. As promised, I handed my journal to Lisa at the end of summer. During our meeting at her office, I started to zone out as my mother and Lisa discussed their perspectives. Lisa reviewed what my mother had written in her journal, her thoughts, observations, and whatever else they had discussed. I snapped back to attention when I heard my name called repeatedly. "Danielle," Lisa addressed me directly, "your mother has shared her thoughts, and I've shared mine. Now, I need to hear from you. If you could, would you like to continue living as Danielle and start school in 2 weeks as Danielle?" I sat there, confronted with the opportunity to embrace the identity I truly desired. I looked at both of them, searching for my answer. Finally, my mother broke the silence. "Danielle," she began warmly, "I have no issues with it. If this makes you happy and you feel like yourself, I'm behind you 100%. That was all I needed to hear. I nodded and hugged my mother tightly. I couldn't have been happier. Then came the unexpected twist. Dr. Lisa handed me slips of paper and said, "Your mother and I agree that you can start hormone therapy to begin your transition." I returned to school as Danielle, introduced officially as a transfer student with my records updated to reflect my true self. I wasn't sure how they managed it all, but I knew I would be graduating as Danielle, with only Lisa aware of my past as Dan. As my senior year draws to a close, I've been approved for gender confirmation surgery, SRS. I plan to undergo the procedure soon, perhaps even opting for a larger chest. When I start college, I'll finally be the woman I've always dreamed of being.